everyone, and welcome back to Logan's Voice. I'm Doug Ballinger, Logan's dad. Today's episode touches on something that's tender and really, really important. A little bit complicated, too. How do we talk to kids about addiction? How do we explain something that we as adults often struggle to understand ourselves? If you're listening today, chances are you're carrying something heavy. Maybe you're raising a child whose parent died from an overdose. Maybe you're a grandparent, aunt, uncle, or foster parent trying to help little ones make sense of something that makes no sense at all. Or maybe you're someone who lost a sibling and you want to help the next generation grow up with truth instead of silence. Here's what I want to say right from the start. Talking to kids about addiction doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest and loving. I know this because I lived it. I've watched children try to piece together what happened with bits and fragments of information, sometimes with shame and confusion, filling the gaps. I've seen how silence, no matter how well intentioned, leaves kids to make up their own explanations. And those explanations are almost always harsher than the truth. The truth, when shared in age-appropriate ways, is powerful. It helps children know that they are not to blame. It helps them understand that addiction is an illness, not a moral failure. And it gives them the language to process loss instead of carrying it like a secret. In today's episode, we're going to talk about why these conversations matter so much, how to have them gently and clearly, and how we can support the children left behind after the loss of a parent or sibling to overdose, fentanyl poisoning, or substance use disorder. Because if we want to break the cycle, it starts with truth. It starts with compassion. And it starts with sitting down, looking a child in the eye, and saying, you deserve to understand what happened, and you deserve to heal. Let's talk about how we do that together. Let's start with something that might surprise some people. Kids already know something's wrong. Even if they don't have the words to describe it, even if we think we've shielded them from the details, they know when something's off. They know when someone they loved is acting differently. They know when grown-ups are whispering behind closed doors. And they absolutely know when someone they love disappears and never comes back. When we don't tell them the truth, even in the gentlest, most age-appropriate way, we leave them to fill in the blanks themselves. And the stories they create in their little heads are often scarier, more damaging, and more isolating than the truth ever could be. I've heard children say things like, was it my fault? Did I do something to make them go away? Why won't anyone talk about it? And as heartbreaking as those questions are, they tell us something really important. Kids want to understand. They want to feel included, trusted, and safe. And they want to know they're not alone. Here's the thing. Many adults avoid these conversations out of love. We think we're protecting our kids by keeping it quiet. But silence doesn't feel like safety to a child. It feels like abandonment. It feels like confusion. It feels like shame. And when we avoid talking about addiction and overdose, we risk unintentionally passing along the very thing we're trying to fight, stigma. By contrast, when we name what happened gently, simply, and without blame, we give kids something powerful. We give them language for their grief. We give them permission to ask questions. And we give them a message they will carry for the rest of their lives. You are worthy of the truth, and this was not your fault. So before we get into the how of talking about addiction with kids, I want to ground us in this belief. Kids are resilient, but they are not immune to grief. What helps them most isn't pretending it didn't happen. What helps them is knowing they are not alone, that they are safe, and that the people around them will tell them the truth with love and compassion. So now that we've talked about why kids need the truth, let's talk about the part that really stops people in their tracks. What do you actually say? Let me start with this. There is no perfect script. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to show up with honesty, love, and a willingness to listen. But I also know that it helps to have language to lean on, especially when your heart is breaking and your words are caught in your throat. So here are some age appropriate ways to talk to children about addiction and overdose. Ages 4 through 7. Be simple and gentle. At this age, kids are concrete thinkers. They need very simple, clear language. You might say, "Your mommy's brain got very sick from a dangerous drug. She didn't mean to leave you. She loved you very much." Or, "Your brother took something that hurt his body and made it stop working. It's not your fault." Avoid saying things like, "They went to sleep and didn't wake up." This can cause sleep anxiety. "They were bad," or "they made bad choices." Anything too abstract like "they're in a better place," it can be confusing or even scary to kids who just want their loved one back. Ages 8 to 12. More context, same compassion. Kids in this group can understand that addiction is an illness, and they often have more pointed questions. Be honest, but reassuring. You might say, "Addiction is a disease that affects how someone's brain works. It makes it really hard to stop using drugs, even when they want to. Your dad didn't want to die. He was struggling with something really hard, and the drug he took was so strong it stopped his body from working." Also, let them ask questions. If they say, "Why didn't he just stop?" you can say, "That's a really good question. Addiction changes the brain in a way that makes stopping really hard without help. It's not about not loving you. It's about how powerful the drug is." And for teens, invite honest dialogue. Teens need and deserve the truth. Many of them already know more than we think. This is your chance to create trust instead of shutting down conversations. You can say, "I'm here to talk to you about anything you want. You can ask me anything. I'll always be honest with you." Addiction is complicated. It's not about being weak. It's not about being bad. It's about pain, trauma, and a disease that hijacks a person's ability to choose. What you should avoid, no matter the age, are words like junkie, dirty, bad choices, or "they did it to themselves." These words create shame, and shame is what prevents healing. Instead, focus on humanity, on love, on the truth that the person who died was more than their addiction. You might say they were struggling, but they were still the person who you loved, and they mattered. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "I don't have all the answers, but I promise to always tell you the truth as best I can, and I will always be here for you." That's what kids need to hear. That they are safe, that the world still makes sense, even if a big piece of it is missing. So, how do we answer the hard questions? Once you open that door to honesty with kids, you'll probably get something back that stops you in your tracks. A hard question. And let me tell you, kids are brave. They'll ask the things adults are too scared to say out loud. That's a good thing. It means they trust you. It means they want to understand. So let's walk through some of the most common hard questions you might hear after the death of a parent or sibling to overdose or substance use, and how you might answer them with truth, care, and age-appropriate language. They might ask, "Was it their fault?" This is one of the most heartbreaking questions. Kids are trying to make sense of something that feels senseless. They often assume someone had to be at fault. You might say, "No, it wasn't their fault. Addiction is a disease that takes over the brain. It doesn't mean they were bad. It means they were sick and didn't get the help they needed in time. You might say something like, they didn't choose to die. They were struggling, and the drug they took was stronger than they thought. It's very dangerous, and it's hurting a lot of people right now. Or they might ask, why didn't they just stop? This one comes from a place of confusion and maybe even anger. The child might feel abandoned or wonder why love wasn't enough. You might say, that's a really important question. Addiction makes stopping very hard. It changes how the brain works, and it makes people believe they need the drug to survive, even when it hurts them. They didn't want to keep hurting, but they also didn't know how to stop. Addiction can be stronger than love when someone is really sick. Or another question, will this happen to me? There might be fear, especially in older children and teens, that they're somehow destined to follow that same path. You can reassure them with truth and empowerment. Addictions can run in families, but it's not your fate. Knowing the truth and talking about it helps you make safer choices. And you have people who love you and want to help you stay healthy, no matter what. This is also a good time to talk about mental health, coping skills, and the importance of asking for help before things feel out of control. Another question, why didn't anyone save them? This one can bring up guilt on your end or the child's. Maybe you've asked yourself that same question. You might say, so many people tried, but sometimes when someone is very sick with addiction, it's hard to reach them in time. We wish things had turned out differently. We wish we could have saved them. Let them feel angry, sad, or confused. Don't try to rush them past the question. Sitting with them in grief is the answer. Sometimes kids won't ask questions at all, and that's okay too. Their silence may be a form of protection, but letting them know that they can ask and that you'll answer without shame builds trust over time. You can always say, whenever you have a question, no matter how big or small, I will do my best to answer it. You never have to go through this alone. So now that we've talked about how to speak the truth and answer tough questions, let's talk about something just as important, maybe even more. How do we help kids grieve in a healthy, meaningful way? Because the truth is, when a child loses a parent or sibling to addiction or overdose, it's not just a loss. It's often a confusing, complicated, and stigmatized loss. They might not feel like they're allowed to talk about it. They might feel embarrassed, angry, or like their grief isn't normal. They might not even realize what they're feeling is grief. That's where we come in. Not with perfect solutions, but with compassion, consistency, and creativity. Give them outlets that aren't just words. Not every child can or wants to talk about the grief out loud. That's okay. Grief lives in the body, in the heart, and in the hands. Give them options like drawing or painting their feelings, creating a memory box filled with photos, keepsakes, or little notes. Writing letters to the person who died, making a bracelet or keychain with that person's favorite colors. Simple rituals like lighting a candle, planting a tree, or choosing a remembrance rock they can carry in their pocket can offer comfort and connection. And normalize all the feelings. Kids need to know that every emotion is okay. There's no right way to grieve, and there's no timeline. Let them know it's okay to feel sad one moment and play the next. That's not forgetting, it's healing. And when the anger shows up, which it often does, don't shut it down. Instead, try, it's okay to feel mad. I feel that way sometimes too. What do you want to do with that feeling right now? And help them understand that love and loss can coexist. One of the most powerful lessons we can give a grieving child is this. You can love someone and still be hurt by what they did. You can miss someone and still be mad at them. You can hold their memory close even when the ending was hard. Addiction doesn't erase the love, and neither does death. That person was their mom, their dad, their sibling, an aunt or an uncle, their whole world. And helping them talk about the love, the laughs, the memories, the nicknames helps balance the weight of the loss. Involve them in remembrance. Children feel empowered when they get to participate in healing. Let them help plan a small memorial or pick out a photo to frame or write something to share at a remembrance event like Bridge the Gap. One idea that's always powerful is Letters to Heaven activity, where kids write or draw something for their loved one and release it with a balloon or place it in a memory box. You're not just helping them process grief, you're giving them permission to stay connected, to remember with love instead of shame. Most of all, remind them often you're allowed to miss them, you're allowed to cry, and you're allowed to keep living and loving without them. Because grieving is not always about moving on, it's about finding a way to move forward with their memory safely carried in your heart. If you're still listening, thank you. This was a big one. Talking to kids about addiction and loss is one of the hardest things a caregiver or loved one will ever have to do. There's no manual, there's no perfect sentence that makes it easier, but there is something more powerful than perfection, and that's presence. Just showing up with honesty and love over and over is what changes everything. Let me remind you of a few truths before we close. Kids need the truth, not all the details, but enough to know they're safe and it's not their fault. They need safe words for big feelings. They need room to grieve in their own way. And most of all, they need you to be brave enough to have the conversation. You're not going to get it all right. None of us do. But if you lead with love and listen more than you speak, you're doing enough. If you're a parent, grandparent, teacher, counselor, or anyone helping a child navigate loss, please know you are not alone. You don't have to walk this road without support. At Hope Movement Coalition, we're building resources just for families like yours. At Logan's Voice, we're having the conversations others are too afraid to start. So keep showing up, keep telling the truth, and keep reminding the children in your life that the one they lost mattered, and they do too. Thank you for listening today. Please share this episode with anyone who might need to hear it. And remember, even in the hardest conversations, love gets the final word. Thank you. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad, and I will not be silent.